On May 25th, 2018, Solo, a Star Wars story, finally opened up in the US as it had already opened up in a few other places worldwide. We here at Midnight's Edge have been covering the Solo drama since its incarnation, and today we are joined on this roundtable by Robb Gallo.
Greetings!
And Dictor Van Doomcock.
Greetings, all of you. I'm glad to be here.
Andre is away, so he's unable to join us, so we are going to talk all about Solo, how we felt about The Last Jedi after the last 6 months, our expectations going into Solo, our overall impressions, likes and dislikes, the box office, and future implications on the Star Wars universe, including Kathleen Kennedy. So let's get right into it, guys. It's been 6 months since The Last Jedi came out. How do you guys feel about it, thinking back on it? Not to bury the lead, none of us were that impressed with it. I probably liked it the most of all three of us, but over time, my feelings on the film have gone down. More errors seem to stick out to me more so over time. I've seen it maybe 2.5 times altogether, and that last time I tried watching, I couldn't get through it all the way. So that's pretty much where I'm at with that. How do you guys feel about this? Doomcock?
The Last Jedi was terrible conceptually. It differed from Solo in that in the moment of being in the theater, it had its boring patches, particularly when they go to the casino planet. That was a stretch of desolation and boredom that I'll never get back. But in general, the things that I loathed about it were interesting. I enjoyed the experience of The Last Jedi more than I enjoyed Solo. But ultimately, The Last Jedi is a terrible, terrible film because it completely destroys the original trilogy, and with the original trilogy, the Star Wars franchise. I mean, it completely invalidates all the character growth of the original characters in the original trilogy. It undermines the victory of the rebels at the end of that wonderful trilogy that we all love. If you don't love the original trilogy, how can you call yourself a Star Wars fan? And so conceptually, it was an abomination, and no amount of polish and spit on that thing is going to make it better. It really, truly was the death knell for the Star Wars franchise.
Have you watched it a second time since you first saw it in theaters?
Oh, hell no. That's like saying, hey, did you put your other foot in the bear trap once you got the stump out? Why the fuck would I do that? Tom, you're a sick man to even try that. I don't understand. I admire you, but you must have a little Marquis de Sade within you.
Well, I had planned on doing a Blu-ray review, and needless to say, I couldn't even get myself to watch the special features yet, so that may happen at a later date, if at all. So, Rob, how about you? We kind of already know how this is going to go, but go ahead.
Curious enough, though, I have taken to the internet, and I have been searching thesaurus.com to find a stronger word than hate. And there doesn't seem to be one in the English language. As I've said, it is a black hole of suck. And I have not watched it again because, as you know about black holes, once you get to the edge, you cannot escape its gravity. That's my opinion on The Last Jedi.
So it's clear that none of us have a great amount of love for The Last Jedi in the least. What were our expectations going in for Solo? Doomcock, why don't we go with you first?
I had no expectations whatsoever. When a trailer says that a film is going to suck, believe it. And every trailer that I saw, it looked drab. It did not look interesting whatsoever. And it looked like, Justin Tallywacker was not going to be able to play Solo, period. And so when I went into this thing, I expected exactly what I got, sadly. That there would be boring, unremarkable. I just didn't have any sense of exactly how dull it would be. Rob, what expectations did you have for Solo going in?
I really as I was walking to the theater, I said, this can't be that bad. There's no way this can be that bad. I mean, it's got to be at least better than The Last Jedi. And at the time, I was saying to myself, that is quite a low bar to clear. Even something like Athlete's Foot is better than The Last Jedi, if you think about it. I mean, I would expect it to be better than Ewok's Battle for Endor, but not nearly as bad as the holiday special. That's where I was coming from.
What about Cavern of Courage? Somewhere in between there?
Yes. Tom, back to you.
Rob, our expectations have kind of been cataloged over the past year or so, leading up to the film.
Yes.
And neither one of us asked for it. Neither one of us really wanted it. But I thought, well, outside of Orville Redenbacher, as Doomcock likes to call him, because none of us can say his name, Alden Ehrenreich, or however you want to pronounce it, I was like, the movie is probably going to be good besides him. Because the trailers at first, unlike Doomcock was stating, I didn't really get the doom and gloom feeling right off the bat. Outside of, I noticed they tried to hide Al a lot. So I was like, okay, the movie's probably good, he just sucks. Maybe if they got Anthony Ingruber, the movie would have been a lot better. Maybe he'd be able to do a lot better job than Alden Ehrenreich did, or however you want to pronounce his name.
Yes.
But we'll get into that in just a few moments. So now that we all kind of stated our expectations going in, what is our overall impression, Doomcock?
Solo was torture for me. Basically, the death of 1,000 sucks. It wasn't a grand and epic failure like The Last Jedi, more of a whimper than a bang. I mean, other than Arlen Redenbacher being completely wrong for Solo, which of course means that the movie fails by default, there are 1,000 other niggling annoyances that pile up like, I use the metaphor of flea bites on your leg, so that over the course of its, 5 or 6 hours running time, when your whole leg finally swells up, you shift from boredom and annoyance to actual rage. And that's why I say in that moment in that theater, I would have gladly swapped out The Last Jedi for Solo on that screen, because at least all the things I hated about The Last Jedi were interesting. Yes, shit like The Last Jedi and Star Trek Discovery are worse than Solo upon reflection because they destroy franchises. I mean, are very modern myths themselves. But in the moment, in the midst of that experience, nothing is worse than boredom. And I've never been so bored by any Star Wars film in my life, including the holiday special that Rob mentioned, which is fascinating in a car wreck sort of way, at least.
Who can forget B. Arthur, as the cantina owner.
Oh, God, that song. Oh.
Well, in the same way as B movies do, they're so bad they're good, like Troll 2 and all that kind of stuff.
Planet 9 from Outer Space.
Yeah. I really honestly hated Solo more passionately in that moment than I hated The Last Jedi in that theater at that moment. Because the things about The Last Jedi that aggravated me so much were at least intellectually interesting. Hatred is not boredom. Rob, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you thought of Solo in a nutshell?
Solo was a movie. It was shown in a theater. It was projected on what looked like a screen, and people paid to see it. Was it a good movie? Certainly not. Was it a bad movie? You know what? And this sounds unusual. I don't think it was a particularly horrible movie, but it was just there. It sat on the screen and it did nothing for me, which is almost worse than being bad. When you don't feel anything, yes. And Han Solo is a character you're supposed to love and revere and revel in, and you're supposed to be excited when you're just numb. I think that's much worse. I
agree 100%. Boredom is the worst crime that a film can commit.
Yeah, I was going to say that does really reflect what Doomcock was kind of saying. And now, I didn't hate The Last Jedi on the same level as you guys did. I have my problems with it, and I have all the same problems probably, but I also see certain things in there that I appreciate, and much like Batman v Superman, I see a movie in there that could have been. Now, I bring that up because with Solo, I have the same problem as Justice League. To me, it was just an unmitigated mess. It not only bored me, but at the same time, the flea bite thing really, I understand that, because that's the way I felt through the whole film. It was a lot like, watching your favorite team blow a championship game, and you're like, what? And you just can't sit still. You're just like, oh my God. And I physically got to the point where I got frustrated with the film overall. I mean, it just, from beginning to end, it just drove me nuts. A lot of the lines were cringeworthy. Most of the acting was cringeworthy. And if the acting wasn't cringeworthy, what they were left to work with was the scenes were haphazard. It was very dark and dreary because there was no joy in it at all, really. It was just a very, like you guys said, it was just there. At least in The Last Jedi, there was things that were visually stunning to look at. You know what I mean?
Right.
And there was some moments that were kind of cool, despite, all the other bullshit that surrounded it. And it just felt like that there was so much more to The Last Jedi than there was here.
Mark Hamill's performance as a Luke Skywalker kind of guy was fabulous. Mark Hamill was brilliant in that role.
Right.
It's not his fault that they gave him a shit script and it completely invalidated the character of Luke. Him playing just a old, a recluse on an island, disillusioned with the world. It was brilliant.
Yeah, and like I said in my review of that basically too, was he just was never given a proper payoff. I kind of liked the whole setup with him in a sense like, he was kind of like Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven. He didn't want to be involved in this anymore, and he should have had a character turn moment like that character did in Unforgiven, where he turned around and did the right thing and showed up and whatever. But in this instance, he didn't show up, and that's where the payoff wasn't there. This whole film was just like no payoff, period. It was a bunch of setups and quotes, just a bunch of fan service moments. And the sad part is it's like they didn't even know how to pay the fan service.
Yeah, it was connecting a lot of Easter eggs almost. Yeah, just counting down to the next reference. Aha! I know what that means.
Exactly. Let's go through what I'm assuming is going to be a very short list. What did we like about the movie? Doomcock, let's start with you, of course.
I didn't like a damn thing about it, honestly. I think honestly, I'm not kidding. It looked cheap. It was murky. I am an old-fashioned guy. I remember when Star Wars was shot in color instead of gray and blue. And it looked cheap. It really looked cheap.
It did look very made-for-TV kind of, yeah.
It really did. I mean, his speeder in that big opening sequence, it's basically a box. And, on the Falcon, I don't know. It's like suddenly, I don't know, somewhere between Solo and Star Wars, they installed some light bulbs on that fucking thing. Because it was just grim. It was absolutely grim.
Maybe Han got sick of hitting his shin on everything.
Yeah, really. And that nightclub sequence on the big ship on, I forget what it was called. I don't even
Corellia
remember.
or?
Yeah, Corellia, the big pirate ship, the Crimson Tide home ship or something. They go on that casino, that bar where that woman is singing that atrocious song.
Might as well have been Candlebite, but yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The worst song I've ever heard in a Star Wars. And that thing, it was so barren. It was so cheap and tacky. My God, they spent $250 million on this thing? Really?
That's the reported budget, but we'll get into that in a little bit too. But yeah, that's supposedly what they spent on it.
I didn't like it. Khaleesi was just playing Khaleesi. I don't know what, Justin Wackerbacher was playing. I don't know. He was playing somebody, some kind of human-like form. Woody Harrelson was playing a Woody Harrelson version of a space pirate. It's just endless. Nothing distinguished there. Nothing interesting. I was never engaged. Oh, and I was offended by more things than I was engaged by, but I guess we'll get to that later.
Right.
Rob, you're freshly wounded. You've freshly seen it. What things did you take away that tickled your fancy, if any?
I like that it eventually ended. It did actually slow my aging process because I think time actually stood still while I was in the theater.
Oh yeah,
and not in a good way. But ironically, one of the things I liked, and there was one thing I did like, is also one of the things I hate. And that's Enfys Nest. I did kind of like Enfys Nest. And I also hated Enfys Nest. And I'll get into that when we talk about the things we hate about the movie. And I'll give you the exact reason why. But Tom, what did you... is there anything you liked about this movie?
I didn't mind Lando. I thought Donald Glover did a great job as Lando. But... Oh
yeah, I should add, actually, I did sort of like... Donald Glover's Lando, but I just kept saying Troy.
Yes, and I agree. I did like how Donald Glover sounded like Lando Calrissian. I liked his voice.
But they basically turned him into, with the whole pansexual thing was way in your face, too blatant with that.
He wasn't nearly the Mac Daddy that I remember Billy D. Williams as.
They made him like Liberace Calrissian with the whole cape thing and everything. I was just like, oh God, he's just a few rings shy now.
Yeah, if Liberace fucked a toaster. Yeah. I mean, he's having sex with his appliance, his co-pilot.
Well, to be fair, isn't that just what Scarlet Witch is doing in the Avengers movies?
Pretty much. But I think...
But she looks hot doing it. I don't know.
I think Vision's got a much better personality and is a little bit more humanoid, so we won't even get into that part. But the other thing I did kind of like, I didn't mind Chewie so much. I didn't like the setup. I don't buy the life debt. But Chewie as a whole, pretty much he acted like Chewie. They didn't really screw him up too much, I guess. The only other thing I guess I really liked, I didn't mind Woody Harrelson. I kind of like especially his stuff with Chewie. I loved the little, when they're playing chess there, but again, it was just a bunch of stuff where it's like, oh, haha, we know what that is. We're going to see that again, blah, blah, blah. Just, yeah. So really, there wasn't a whole lot of likes other than that. I guess I'll give him credit that the Kessel, even though I bitched about it, the Kessel Run wasn't a race, but I didn't expect to be watching, Smokey and the Bandit in space either, so.
Yeah.
So,
eastbound and down, loaded up and chugging.
So yeah, let's move on then to our dislikes, and I have a feeling this is going to take a while. So Doomcock, you already kind of got started on some of your dislikes. Why don't you kind of finish that up?
There's three things that were really macro awful in this. The first one is, Arden Cauliflower is terrible as Solo, as I said. And, honestly, that's not his fault. He was miscast, but he was god-awful. Now, I blame Kennedy for this because the fact that they didn't cast Anthony Ingruber is her fault, clearly. I mean, it fits in with her and Ryan Needle-Dick Johnson's idea of thwarting viewer expectations as a substitute for quality. I mean, no doubt about it, okay? Ingruber would have been the perfect choice, so naturally they couldn't cast him. That's just what we were expecting them to do, right? Because he would have been perfect. What idiots we are. I hated the whole Kessel Run thing because it's nonsensical. Now the whole setup, you have to kind of get into the plot here for a second, but the whole setup of it is they need to get unrefined coaxium ore to go ahead and deliver it to settle a debt to the main bad guy, Paul Bellamy. So they've got to find a way to shave time off of, this Kessel Run. But the question is, if, they're going to go and rob this ore mine underneath the spices, and they got to get out there before it detonates. So the problem is, if they have a name for this procedure, if they call it the Kessel Run, then it must happen all the fucking time. So why don't they have safeguards against this? I mean, what is the Kessel Run if it's not a timed thing under a great stress through this little tunnel, this inexplicable cloud tunnel, this tunnel through this cloud? How is that tunnel maintained? How is it, do they keep the monsters and the asteroids that are rife in the outside cloud out of this tunnel? It just makes no sense. The whole thing is stupid from start to finish. It makes no goddamn logical sense whatsoever. So that's a problem. I had a real problem with the way that Khaleesi Han Solo his ass, not once, not twice, but thrice, in one scene at the end, and basically bests Han Solo in his own movie at the end. I mean, didn't you find that a bit questionable when you saw it?
Yeah, well, strong female characters.
Yeah, that's fine. But it's his movie, okay?
She knows Tara Kasai, though.
Yeah.
And she's got friends in low places.
Oh, man.
Great, now Garth Brooks is going to sue us.
Yeah.
I'm Garth Maul.
Garth Maul. Yes.
Garth Maul. Oh, shit.
I blame it all on Obi-Wan.
Oh,
My
God.
bottom half is gone.
Yeah.
Back on track.
And finally,
just like that stupid
the
train.
fact that she hands him his ass, I mean, she turns him over, she betrays him over to her boss. Then when he tries to draw his gun, she disarms him. And then she beats him up, and then she actually saves his ass when he gets into it with the big boss, and then sends him on his way and takes the ship. So that was a big problem because, I thought Han Solo was supposed to be the hero of his own movie. I don't really want to pay to see Han Solo. Of course, he doesn't look like Han Solo, so it wasn't painful, but still, in theory, you should at least have Han Solo triumph. And finally, the worst part of it is, it completely invalidates the end of Star Wars by having Solo undergo the character growth in this movie that he underwent in Star Wars. At the end of Star Wars, he discovers his primal soul. He discovers that he's a good guy with a heart after all, and he sacrifices for the rebellion exactly what he does in Solo. So why did he forget the lesson between Solo and Star Wars?
Yeah, I agree.
It's part of Kennedy's systematic dismantling of and disrespect for George Lucas's Star Wars, and that I find intensely insulting and offensive in the same way that I found Luke going off to the island and being a coward and a traitor offensive in The Last Jedi. So, I hated this movie. I hated it. Rob, what did you think?
Okay, well, pretty much a lot of the same stuff you said. I hated the murky look of this movie. Everything looked hazy. I don't understand why we can't have a clear visuals anymore in 2018 when it comes to filming movies. Everything has got to be this underlit kind of mess, you know. And they spent all the money on this movie. You think they could have rented a few generators for lighting?
Yeah, you would think with the way they could do with computers and everything nowadays, you can still have a look to it, but still at least be able to see everything.
Solo really wasn't the victor in a lot of places. And there was that one part during the fight with Paul Bettany, Scarface dude, that actually he did seem like Han Solo. Where that part where he was just kind of going around the office looking for his gun, and he's almost so Han Solo here. Nope. That couldn't last. And they totally undermined that part by having, like you said, Lady Khaleesi save him. And for all the promotional material about Therm Scissor Punch, we didn't see him.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah.
Therm was MIA.
Yeah. Freaking Woody Harrelson was Woody Harrelson. But one of the big problems I had, and like I said, just about all the points that you were correct on, Doomcock, one of the big problems I had was, like I said, Enfys Nest. Okay, Enfys Nest, the big space pirate guys, and okay, cool. And they attack the train trying to get the coaxium. I still don't understand why fuel is now a thing in the Star Wars universe. But no. I think, but I'll explain that in a second. But so anyway, Enfys Nest attacks the train with the Marauders and kind of a generic pirate name, and they're like, oh, cool. This Enfys Nest is kind of a badass. All right, okay. How are they gonna fuck this up? And Enfys Nest is kind of a badass, and it's got the cool look and the helmet and everything. And then on the beach planet, they're confronted by Enfys Nest and the Marauders again. And there's that funny little scene where the Falcon flies away, and so they get to the point where Enfys Nest takes a step forward, and there's this big moment during the confrontation, and Enfys Nest takes off the helmet, and it's a 16-year-old girl.
Pirate Roberts kind of moment, yeah.
Not even the Dread Pirate fucking Roberts.
Yeah, it's not even that good, yeah.
And okay, here's my issue with this. Here's my fucking issue with this. Okay, now.
Preach, brother.
You want to make Enfys Nest a female character, a woman. Fine. I have no problem with that. However, a bunch of hardened space pirates are not going to respect a 16-year-old girl. It's just it's just not believable. I was like, okay, well, that's it. I've checked out. I was like, come on, you got to think this through. And I've heard that this was something that Kathleen Kennedy insisted upon.
Of course.
They were gonna make Enfys Nest a female character, and that she insisted on making her a 16-year-old girl. And for whatever the fuck reason, girl power, whatever, I mean, somebody had to have said to her, this isn't gonna work. People aren't gonna believe this.
I know why they did.
Why?
Because she's the start of the rebellion, so it had to be a 16-year-old.
Of course.
And don't tell me they're gonna make her Mon Mothma. That's gonna be even more idiotic.
No, but she is obviously the start of the rebellion, and I'll get into my feelings on all that too. But yeah, that's kind of the whole point there.
But the thing is, there's a 10-year gap between the start of the rebellion and the Battle of Yavin. I mean, you could have made her at least 25, 26, or even 30. I mean, that would have been a little bit more believable. 16, and they tried to explain it away by all the pirates are the different planets got conquered by the Empire, and now we're rising up. I'm like, no, I call bullshit. Didn't work. At least it didn't work for me. I'm out.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's just Kathleen Kennedy. It's more Kathleen Kennedy. We've got Jyn, we've got Rey, we've got Khaleesi kicking Solo's ass, we've got 16-year-old Twinkie being the leader of the Raiders. Maybe somebody just needs to tell Kathleen Kennedy she's not a young woman anymore. Maybe she'll stop having these placeholders for herself in these movies and have a little maturity and stop fucking us.
I don't doubt that she sees herself in all of these characters. I really don't doubt that. Oh, look at me. I'm a strong woman and I conquered the world. I'm like, yeah, but you rode Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg's coattails to get there. And not taking a whole lot away from her. But there was that old saying about Bill Walton on the Boston Celtics. He was the sixth man. Yeah, he was the sixth man off the bench to congratulate Larry Bird on having a great game.
Hey-oh, that's right.
Tom?
Well, we're kind of short on time, so I'm not going to be able to get into a great deal of what I disliked. I did a little video. Some people might have watched it, I don't know. But yeah, if you check out that video, I get into a lot of what I disliked in the film, so I'm going to kind of try and go off that a little bit. And start off first with Orville Redenbacher or Alden Ehrenreich, whatever you want to call him. He was the piss poorest choice in the galaxy to play this part.
Oh, and can I just add that Alan Rickenbacker there, he was totally devoid of charisma. And
yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way I believed he was Han Solo, except for that, like I said, there was that one brief instance in the office during the final fight scene with Scarface. Other than that, no, I didn't
even get that. I didn't even get that.
No.
He was probably the worst part, and I knew that going in. Like I said in, my expectations, I actually wanted to like this movie. I thought it would probably be okay outside of him. Boy, was I wrong. But to go off of, like I said, what I had said in a lot of my review or rant, whatever you want to call it, whatever, he just had nothing. Like you said, he had no charisma. He did not have any of the suave debonair that Solo had in any of the other films. I did not once feel like I was watching Han Solo at all. And we got to thank Steven Spielberg for this, and I hate that. If Steven Spielberg had so much faith in this kid, why didn't Steven Spielberg direct this movie? Because then maybe he could have got the performance out of this kid that we needed, but it just didn't work. And even if we would have gotten Anthony Ingruber, he wouldn't have saved this film, because as you guys said, it's just a boring mess from beginning to end, and you can tell it was slapped together in 3 months. And God, I don't even know where to start outside of I really don't know why they even tried to do this, and I don't buy anything in the movie. I don't buy Lando and Han's relationship. What relationship did they have? He took off on him. They were together for what, a whole of 2 hours maybe in real time?
Yeah.
Same thing with, the whole thing with the ending. I seen a lot of that coming from a mile away. I felt like I was watching Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull again when they started playing the double cross game. I was like, oh Christ, here we go with this. Because you see it coming a mile away. But the biggest part that I had a problem with there at the end, when you guys are talking about A, Han having a hand in starting the rebellion, and B, not taking the money and running. Because as Doomcock pointed out, it totally negates his entire arc in the next story as far as we know it right now, considering who knows if we're going to get any sequels to this, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But really, there was just so much left to be desired when it came to this movie. And I know there's some people out there who enjoyed it, and there's a lot of people who say, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, or it was better than I thought it was going to be. And that's fine. I don't want to take that away from anybody. But I think this movie is just a glaring example of everything that is wrong right now with Star Wars. And I, for the longest time, stuck up for Kathleen Kennedy and the crap between the pansexual Lando and the robot, and like you guys were talking about with Emilia Clarke, with her character and how that turned out. And like you guys both said, at the end there, it seems like even though Han's been pining for this girl for 3 years, he doesn't seem to give a shit that she's leaving. And granted, his character's probably supposed to be bearing that down inside, but because they picked a piss poor actor, he wasn't able to portray that. I wish they had given Ron Howard like 6 more months to work on this. Maybe it would have been a little bit better film, but I doubt it. You guys have said so much that really, there doesn't leave much more for me to say other than the Falcon. Now, a lot of people have said, oh, you're full of shit, they didn't turn the Falcon into a character. Now, yes, they kind of did. I'm going to argue that for a moment, because for various reasons here. I don't know where this Droids Lives Matter thing came from all of a sudden, because last I knew, droids were like secondary citizens. Nobody gave a shit. Even Luke barely got that upset every time R2 got fucked up, because he knew he could be repaired and he'd be his old self again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has an attachment to R2 like you would, less than a dog.
R2's like a pocket watch for Luke, really.
A Swiss Army droid.
Exactly.
Granted, yes, he does have some attachment to him because they've been through a lot, and he says that. But, it's like when you first see him and how he treats the droids, and everybody else treats the droids, just like, Red Letter Media brought up in the episode 1 review, why in the hell is Queen Amidala congratulating this droid for doing his job? Did they have a funeral for all the droids that died while this one was doing his job? You know, it makes no sense whatsoever. You know, it's like, does she turn around and thank her vibrator at night too?
R2D2, we bestow upon you the commemorative medal of honorable fan service. That's what it is.
No, it's like, okay, so all of a sudden now droid lives matter. Okay, whoop-de-doo. And there's some people who love this droid and hate this droid, but I'm sorry. Turning her into the Falcon, and don't tell me they're not going to have some kind of callback to that if Lando shows up in episode 9. You know he's going to come in there and he's going to start rubbing the council and go, I missed you, old girl. You know that's what he's gonna fucking say.
Oh yeah.
Just like now that makes more sense when he's talking to the Falcon in Return of the Jedi and stuff. It's like you got to add that extra layer there that didn't need to be there. When they're
you want to, I'm sorry. You want to know something weird though? Screen Rant, when they did they do those pitch meetings, those pitch things. They said, you know, they took the droid's consciousness. She wanted freedom for herself and all droids, and they took her consciousness and they trapped it inside the Falcon. That must be like a horrifying existence for her now.
That harkens right back to The Last Jedi when we kept bringing up, you know, it's like they're trying to send some kind of political message with this shit when they don't even understand the message they're trying to send. Sure, they free all those goddamn horses or whatever the hell they are, but what about the kids? Oh, fuck the kids.
Fuck them. I mean, they gotta learn a trade, you know? They gotta learn a skill.
Well, you know, they can't run as fast, so they're not as easy to free. You know, they can't really get away like the antelopes could. We do what we can, damn it.
So yeah, there was just that kind of mentality all over this movie, and the cringe-worthy dialogue and callbacks, and I got a job on Tatooine. Oh, great. Something that's probably not supposed to happen for another 10 years. You know, and
yeah.
It's just...
And when Woody Harrelson came out there wearing the helmet that Lando wears in Return of the Jedi to infiltrate Jabba's palace, well, the reason he wore it is because Jabba's guards wore that helmet. So it makes no fucking sense that Woody Harrelson would have it lying around on the Falcon to wear. It's so fucking stupid.
The logic of what that helmet represented in Return of the Jedi was completely tossed out the window because it didn't fucking matter, because the people making this didn't care or pay enough attention.
Right.
And you could say, yeah, Lawrence Kasdan had something to do with this. I bet he had very little to do with the movie outside of what his son was being involved with. Because, frankly, this movie is written by somebody who has maybe seen Star Wars 2 or 3 times, it feels like.
Yeah.
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 You want to actually, you talk about the logic of the movie, and this is a bone of contention I've been having lately with a lot of people. I see this all the time online and other places. There's people who are defending like The Last Jedi, and they'll defend Solo by saying, well, what did you expect in a movie about space wizards who use space magic? That's not a valid point. I expect it to be good. I mean, I'm like, don't insult my intelligence in thinking that I'll watch any piece of shit you're going to throw up on the screen. It still has to make sense within that universe.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you lay out a premise, all right? Whatever that premise is, it can be fantastic, it can be mundane. I mean, it can be a hospital, you know, with doctors involved in dramas, or it can be space wizards in space. Whatever it is, all that we ask is that when you set those rules, remain consistent with those rules. Be internally consistent, don't condescend to your audience, and keep it real within that universe, however fantastic it is.
And that comes back to what I was saying about fuel. When has fuel ever played a role in the Star Wars universe until recently? And please spare me the whole one line in a video game, in a comic book or a novel that nobody has read, or that was just a throwaway line. Okay, spare me that.
Liquid Schwartz.
I said this actually to someone at the theater. Luke flew his X-Wing from Hoth to Dagobah,
Right.
had it submerged in a swamp, had Yoda lifted out of the swamp, and then flew it from Dagobah to Bespin without any problem. All of a sudden now, everyone's looking for a gas station?
Right? But no, to combine both of your points that you just said, the fuel. Why would you use a train, first of all? Not a good idea. You have spaceships, you have shuttles. You load it up on a shuttle that's generally you can keep very, level. Why would you waste the time on a train when you can just shoot it over to wherever you got to shoot it to in a shuttle? Or better yet, why don't you just build the facility right there? But we're not even going to get into that because we have to have a train because we're trying to make a Western here, you know? That's the whole reason that's there.
I don't remember what the name of the movie was, but there was a movie years ago with Roy Scheider, and they had to transport nitroglycerin
Sorcerer.
That was it? That was it?
Yeah, Sorcerer, William Friedkin.
Yeah, that was actually a really good movie, but they actually showed they couldn't transport it by helicopter, and they had to, and like I said, the consistency and the believability. I mean, you can't just make shit up on the fly, and you have to be consistent within your own universe, and you have to do things that make logical sense.
But still, the point is, why wouldn't you just have the facility right there? Why would you transport it on train to one place to another? Just so you could have a chance that marauders or pirates could come by and steal the shit, right?
Yeah.
Hey, let's leave this valuable resource just out in the open where it could be easily stolen.
You know, waste the time of transporting it to wherever, regardless. And then the other point I was going to bring up was Star Trek thought of this a long time ago. Why fuck with something like fuel in spaceships? You would have some kind of source of power. And it always seemed to me like the Falcon had like some kind of fuel cell or something like that to where, because it would work sometimes, it wouldn't work sometimes, things would work sometimes it wouldn't start, sometimes it would. It didn't seem to have anything to do with gas itself. I don't ever remember Han going to Chewie and going, we're going to have to stop for some gas here pretty soon.
Oh, the Falcon's like a Chevy Nova, like a 73 Chevy Nova. Like you walk outside, perfectly fine day, you turn the key, nothing happens.
Because that was the whole thing we kept bringing up with The Last Jedi and how fuel makes no sense because they're flying for like days on no fuel, evidently, but they don't have enough fuel to jump to light speed. Okay, whatever. Anyway, so
we beat that to death.
Regardless, we could go on all day about things that are wrong with this movie, and we just don't have the time, and I'm sure the listeners don't have the time, and we don't want to sit here and bash Solo all day or beat a dead horse, as we like to say. Let's talk a little box office, though. So now that we've talked about how we feel about the film overall, let's talk about the box office and future implications going forward for the Star Wars universe. Now, as we all kind of said going into this, the first weekend it opened up against a bunch of competition. It was Memorial Day. Movies haven't been doing notoriously well on Memorial Day for the last few years, so a lot of people kind of shrugged off its lowly $103 million opening, which it's funny saying $103 million is lowly, but for a film like Star Wars, it is. Now, this last weekend, though, was very, very telling because you would think anybody who didn't get out to the theater on the holiday weekend to see this movie that was going to go see Solo would have went to see it the second weekend. They did not, because the movie only made $29 million its second weekend, meaning everybody stayed home or went to a different movie. Now, Disney, of course, has started with the excuses already, saying it opened up at a very saturated time at the box office, which again, we reiterate, if that was the case going forward, everybody who is going to see Deadpool and Avengers already seen them. And if they were going to go see Solo and didn't get to go see it the first weekend, they were going to go this last weekend. So regardless, the movie's a flop. There's no way it's probably going to make much more than $200 million in the US, and it's just hardly made that overseas altogether worldwide. So basically, it's dead in the water. So between that and these recent rumors we have now coming out that Kathleen Kennedy may be stepping down in September, what do you guys think of all this between the box office, Kathleen Kennedy, and what's going to have to be done going forward to maybe fix this? We'll start with you, Doomcock.
Well, I think that there's no doubt about it that the film is a flop. It is not going to rally. I think back to that scene in Pulp Fiction with Marcellus Wallace talking to Butch saying, if you was going to make it, you'd have made it by now.
Right.
It's like people would have gone to see it on the second weekend. They didn't. It's dead. So I think that clearly there is a malaise in Star Wars. I think that it's The Last Jedi. I think that Solo itself was lame for all the reasons that we've talked about. But really, ultimately, I think that The Last Jedi has severely damaged this franchise. And I just don't know that it's going to recover. It's certainly not going to recover as long as Kathleen Kennedy is there with her little pal Ryan fucking things up merrily in her wake. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I think The Last Jedi poisoned the well for Star Wars and for the franchise. I don't see how the momentum can be reinvigorated for this franchise. A lot of people have lost interest, myself included, and Solo didn't help any.
I hate to disappoint all the conspiracy theorists out there, but the loathing of The Last Jedi is real. I think that there's no way around it. The box office of Solo is related directly to The Last Jedi.
sadly, we've seen in the past couple of days a lot of websites coming to the defense of Disney and Kathleen Kennedy and The Last Jedi, and claiming about how, oh, well, there's a toxic fan problem. Yeah, okay, there are toxic fans, but you know what? You gotta say at some point, this movie sucks. The Last Jedi sucks. This whole new trilogy sucks. You're gonna have to admit it to yourself. You can't keep defending these films.
Yes, I said it in my video that they are suffering from hypnosis. It's this condition where they absolutely have invested so much personally into supporting this team, this franchise, whatever they do. It's the logo, it's the name. And if that fails, then it feels like a personal failure to them. And so they defend it just because it's their side. They don't even give a damn if it's good anymore. That's the problem. Hypnosis.
Well, and we've gotten to a point where it's almost like echoes of Ghostbusters 2016 again. We've had Kelly Tran leave Instagram over being bullied, supposedly, which it's weird. You think if she was going to leave, she would have left 6 months ago, probably when it was a lot worse. So there are some people speculating that this was just a move pushed by Disney to get some of the heat off of Solo. Take that as you will. Because now Rian Johnson has officially crossed over into Paul Feig territory by blasting all of the fans who are against these movies. And that's what they're starting to do. They're starting to lump in the people with legitimate gripes and legitimate reasons for disliking the way things are going. And a lot of them had nothing to do with the race of the character or the sex of the character at all. You know, it has nothing to do with that so much, other than Kathleen Kennedy is basically using Star Wars to push her agenda, which is starting to seep through in all sorts of ways. And it's rubbing fans the wrong way, along with all the things we've talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, every man is an idiot. Every woman is smarter than everybody else. I mean, it's just so heavy-handed at this point.
They're hiding behind this, and that's just it. They're taking 5 or 6 people, maybe a few more if that are causing a disturbance and saying racist things and sexist things, and they're using those people and propping them up and saying, here, this is a perfect example of what the white male supremacist Star Wars fan is. They negate the fact that there was tons of other fans that were black, Puerto Rican, Mexican, what have you, and female for that matter.
Yes.
So you can't hide behind that anymore. It's the same thing with Ghostbusters. You can't hide behind that and say that that's what this is all about and blame these toxic fans and label a whole group of people this way and not expect some kind of blowback.
Yeah. That's exactly what's going on, too. I mean, that's why the loyalists are all falling in line, because it just reveals their attitude. They turn Star Wars into a political crusade rather than an entertainment franchise.
Yeah, and that's just it. You know, and it's not to say you can't mix politics and entertainment. I mean, what the Orville does magnificently. I mean, but they sneak it in
subtlety.
They sneak it in subtly. They subtly, where you say, "Hey, you know, there was a situation just like, oh yeah." You know?
Yeah, Star Wars was already subtly an allegory for World War II and Vietnam and things of that sort. But it wasn't like, outside of like kind of the way the Empire came off as like the Nazis was obvious, but it wasn't like as in your face as some of this stuff is now with, you know, droids' lives matter and, you know, strong female leaders being such a big deal to people for some reason all of a sudden. You know, fuck Mount Mothra, fuck Leia, fuck anybody else before.
Yeah.
You can't deny it anymore. The fans have spoke with their wallets. They did not go to see Solo, and if they did, they paid for a different movie. Because the numbers just don't add up, and you can use whatever excuse you want in the book. What we learned from Batman v Superman into Justice League is the same thing here. You put out a product that insults your audience, and then you turn around and insult them in return. They're not going to show up for your next movie.
Yes.
Andre kind of disagreed with me, and a few other people have, but I said this. I don't think they should have got Ron Howard. I think they should have just finished the Lord and Miller version, put it out there.
Yes.
Because they would have just had a shitty movie. Now they got a shitty movie, and they're out the money. Because this is something we didn't really bring up yet, and it's kind of akin to Justice League in that they spent a lot of money on this movie. They basically filmed the movie twice. I think that the budget's a lot more than that $250 million they're reporting. A lot more.
Yeah.
And Disney's whole business model is built on making people happy. And there's a lot of Star Wars fans who ain't happy. So...
Yeah, the box office numbers show that for sure, and I think that's a pretty good place to probably wrap this up. And of course, we want to thank Doomcock for joining us on this roundtable and taking the time out.
I thank you very much for the invite, gentlemen. It's been a great pleasure.
And you can check him out on Overlord DVD on YouTube. And we'd like to thank you guys for listening to our roundtable here on Midnight's Edge.
If you like this video, then please click the subscribe button. And don't forget to click the bell icon to be notified for all the latest uploaded content. Due to recent changes to YouTube's monetization policies, we'd also like to ask you to please consider supporting Midnight's Edge and its sister channel, Midnight's Edge After Dark, through Patreon. As thanks for their support, patrons will receive early notifications of mini-documentaries, special behind-the-scenes making of the Edge videos, bloopers, outtakes, lost episodes, and more. You can support the channel for as little as $1 a month. Be sure to check back for news and analysis on the corporate politics behind your favorite genre movies, as well as updates and discussion here at Midnight's Edge.